I hope it, whatever. Okay. Well, should we just jump into it?
Yeah, I'm just the guy you're talking to so that you're not talking to yourself.
Is that
Feel
a
free
thing?
feel free to cut and insert any comments anywhere to rearrange.
You just have a plethora of memes just waiting to get drag and dropped in.
Yeah.
Always ready. Always ready, Missy. Okay. I want to make sure. So this is, let me give a little bit of background. Um, no, it's echoing. Hold on. So the background on this is that I personally am quite cautious about what I post politically, etc. Um, because I want to be, I don't know. I just think that I'm very cautious of trying to fall into the trap of selectivism and just posting things online. But this, I'm a big fan of Hasan Piker, and I've been watching him recently with everything going on in the States, talking about all these people getting snatched up in the streets and how he himself is. Everybody's like, you got to be careful because even though he's born in the States, he's Turkish, and how he's saying that he has a little bit of a buffer zone because he was born there, but more importantly than that, he has a little bit of wealth. He's got some money behind him to kind of give him a little bit of a little bit of a buffer zone. Plus, he has a higher profile. The problem is he was coming back in from France the other day and got detained. So this is all happening in real time, and it just seemed very relevant to share my own personal experience because um, I think it's, I don't know how much, I mean, I know I have a huge echo chamber around me, but I think that it's really important to just present fact-based information about my experience as an adoptee and having my um, green card. Basically, I was forced to surrender it during Trump's first administration back in 2019. And things have only gotten severely worse since then. So, anyway, this is what inspired me to talk about it first. So let's just hear what happened to him. Miss, you have sound? Is it coming through?
No. I can't hear it.
I don't know
Not
why.
technical difficulties.
I'm not big business yet. I don't know how to run this stuff.
What do you think this is? A
Expeditiously gets to
production?
me. Take a photo. Boom. Walk in.
Now I can.
Instantly. The Customs and Border Patrol agent goes, "Step aside, sir. An agent will come and take you to another location." I was like, is that proper protocol? It's like, sometimes it happens. There's a detention area. I'm sitting there. There's like a bunch of terrified families. There's an old lady in a wheelchair. Finally, this agent comes out. They take me to this back room and we got to talking. And let me tell you, folks, the TikTokers that talked about being detained, they were right. It was an insane situation. So it's very obvious that they knew exactly who the I was. It's very obvious that they knew how to like navigate the conversation. You know, he's like, "Oh, what are you doing in Chicago?" And I was very revealing. I was like, "I want to take my family out for Mother's Day to France, but I had to come back early from France because I have a speaking engagement at University of Chicago." And he was like, "Oh, what kind of speaking engagement?" It's like, I don't know, some like journalism school stuff. And he's like, "Oh, well, since you mentioned that, what do you do as a job?" And I was like, "I'm a Twitch streamer." And he's like, "Well, since you mentioned that, what kind of things do you stream about?" So I was just like, "I play video games, but I also do current events sometimes." And he's like, "Since you mentioned that, do you talk about the news?" And I was like, "Yeah, I talk about the news." "So when you talk about the news, do you talk about the war?" And I was like, "What do you mean by that?" He's like, "Do you talk about Trump?" And that was the first time where I was like, what the is this question? Like, I literally straight up told him, I was like, why are you asking me this? Like, what does this have to do with anything? None of these questions are actually valid questions to ask. But I was entertaining it because, one, I didn't want to present it as being difficult because I didn't want to extend the detention. And two, I actually wanted to see how far I could take it. And I'm glad I did this because the reality of the matter is I'm profoundly privileged. I'm a public person. I have enough money to be able to fight back against this sort of thing. And they know who the I am. So obviously, the reason for why they're doing that is, I think, to try to create an environment of fear, to try to get people like myself, or at least like others that would be in my shoes that don't have that same level of security, to shut the up. And I'm going to use the privilege that I have in that moment to try and see what the they're doing. Every single thing that they ask me is literally not allowed. Like, what the do you mean? Why is this denying me entry into the country of my birth? You can't just stop me at the border and be like, what's your opinion on Donald Trump? You're not allowed to enter the nation. For those of you who don't know, I was
So, so that was just happened today. It is Wednesday. That just happened a couple of days ago. So to piggyback off of that, in 2019, I was coming back in from Mexico. I was on my way to Iowa. I guess further background on that is that I am a Korean adoptee. I was brought to America at the age of 4 months. And there's obviously a bigger story about kind of like the business of adoption back in the 80s. But my parents didn't do my paperwork. And I didn't know that they didn't do my paperwork until I was 15. So I have never lived in America as a US citizen. I have only been in America as a green card holder, even though I was there from 4 months old until the age of 24 when I left and I went to Korea because I had a Korean passport. So when I was coming back in, at this point, I had been going between Korea and America regularly for about 2019, since 2007. And legally, and again, I have been, every time I come into the States, I make sure that I go and I go to the immigration office. I'm abiding by the actual letter of the law according to immigration law. But the problem is that the Customs and Border Patrol are separate from actual immigration officers, and they really kind of operate like cowboys. They if they're to push it and they have to go through the proper legal channels, obviously, then they would have to lean on proper immigration law. But at that point, they really have a lot of power to do what they want to do without a lot of accountability. So in that particular moment in November of 2019, I was brought to the second window. I wasn't detained, but I was brought to the second window, which is very normal in my situation. It's happened before. And they were questioning me about why I was coming into the States. And I explained that I'm a Korean adoptee. I'm headed home. I'm headed to Iowa. And they said, well, why aren't you a citizen? And I explained how, in my particular circumstance, there was special legislation that went into effect as of 2001. So any international adoptee under the age of 18 after 2001 is granted automatic citizenship. That went into effect February 28th, 2001. I turned 18 February 16th, 2001. So I missed this automatic citizenship by a handful of days, a week and a half, basically. So I am explaining this, and she goes, well, you should have, derived citizenship based on your parents. And I said, I don't have derived citizenship. This is not applicable to me because I was not considered a child of my parents at the time of birth, because I'm not a natural born child. I'm an adoptee, even though, yes, my parents are natural born and they have lived in America their entire life. So at this point, and in my memory, I am explaining it as matter of fact. In this tone, I didn't elevate my tone. I know better than to escalate in that situation, same as he knows, because it just doesn't serve you. But at that point, now people are starting to kind of gather around. There's maybe 3 officers at my particular window. And she was getting very, I don't want to say she was getting angry, but she was getting very impatient with me because she was convinced that I was wrong. So they held onto my green card. I went and I sat down. And there was a little bit of a back and forth. They looked up the laws, and I was correct, but they another guy came up, and there was another exchange back and forth. And he basically, in not so many words, said, well, she was going to give your card back. We were willing to let you go, but you decided to have an attitude. And so you're not leaving with your card today. You could have, but we're just not going to let you. So technically, they're not allowed to steal my property. My green card is my property, but there was a lot of confusion because my circumstance is a little bit unique. And also, they're not used to dealing with a person in as empowered of a position as me, as a native speaker, as somebody that's educated, as somebody that has more information about the immigration laws that they're intended to act on the behalf of, actively enforce. And so that created this point of contention. At no point was I yelling, at no point did I intend to fight with them. But in a similar vein, I was, as Hasan, I was looking around and I was seeing, families of Vietnamese people who, have files full of paperwork, and nobody speaks English. They're not, or they aren't native English speakers. There's maybe, a member or two in the family that's speaking English to the best of their ability, but they're not bringing in support translators. And I asked the officer, should I be trying to seek out legal counsel at this point? She goes, you're not entitled. So, okay. I don't understand what's happening in this situation. I am not allowed to call anybody. I'm not allowed to call my family. I'm not allowed to seek out any additional information. She started asking me for specific information about me. And I, again, asked her, I go, is this a point where I need to be seeking out representation? And then they threatened me with jail. They said, if you are difficult and you decide to withhold this information, we're going to send you to jail until you feel like telling us. So this has just been the tone of the whole interaction. And eventually it was back and forth. And the officer said, here's the deal. You can surrender your card voluntarily, and you can walk out of here as a Korean tourist. You come in on an ESTA, whatever their visa on arrival situation is, and we let you go. If you decide to go through the immigration courts, if you decide to fight this, you could potentially be deported. And if you are deported, you are not allowed to consider coming back to the country for 10 years. Now, keep in mind, this is my home. This is, I have family members, I have friends, I have a life in Iowa. And I looked at him and I said, well, that's not really an option, is it? So, it's, according to the paper, I signed that I do this on my own volition, and that I have not been counseled in any way by any of the officers, which was in direct contrast to what actually happened. They were actively trying to convince me to surrender my card. They were trying to create fear around being deported. And so I surrendered it. And in that moment, it's very hard because you realize that I wasn't giving up a card. I was losing access to my home. And in that moment, there's no recourse. There's nobody there who's able to advocate for me. And even though I've chosen to live abroad for the majority of my adult life, it's just a very hard thing to know that, we can be philosophical about it. Home is wherever you make it, but let's get down to fucking brass tacks. My home is Iowa, and And it was decided in that moment that my home was not my home. And that was not a decision made by me. It was made by a stranger in Detroit. So I am sharing this story to serve as a touch point for people to understand that there are bigger implications, especially for people that you know that are not in the news. I'm not being snatched off the street. I am not being sent to CCOT. I am not one of those worst case scenarios. But I think everybody that's immediately connected to me, a lot of you know about this situation and this circumstance. But for those of you that don't, I think it's important for you to understand that for as many big stories as there are, there's a lot of people that are getting swept away and all of these decisions that are being made. And they have very, very broad implications. So that's where we're at.
You're such a beautiful crier.
I've been told.
It's almost like you have practice.
Is there a specialty in that? Should I let that be my
Only
my
fan.
identity, my only fan, being a beautiful crier?
Yes. They can
Yeah.
choose whether they want the sexy photos or the sad ones.
Choose your adventure. Choose your emotional adventure.
Oh my God. It is so like just thinking about it, and like you really are an original because first term, baby.
He won.
You
Yeah.
you you were
2019.
you were disappeared before it was cool.
Absolutely.
Before they even gave carte blanche to like ICE, I mean, I just think about the power that those people who like essentially it's any like menial labor job that like anyone can have, it's not, you're more aware of the legislation and the law and how it impacted you in every sense of it.
And it still
And
didn't help me. And it still didn't have, I still
and
had
I
no weight in that room.
And I would argue that your awareness of it made you more of a target of their ego. Cause like that threat of like, oh, if you hadn't given us a problem, like we wouldn't have taken it. And it's like, so your awareness of exactly where you stood was like the attitude. Like they didn't like that you knew more about your situation than they did. And rather
Yeah.
than like reading.
Except that the information was correct, and except that we have the internet, and except that, I'm not doing this to make anybody's life difficult. And the irony is, I love the nonchalance of, well, just become a citizen. Why didn't you just get your passport? Why didn't you just do it? And the twist of the knife is that at that point, I was trying to reinstate my residency because you need continuous stay in the States
Yeah.
for 6 months of the year for 5 years. And I committed, I said, Mindy, this is ridiculous. Just fucking do it. Just do it. So I was in the process of trying to do that. And I just happened to be taking, a vacation in Mexico. I don't even think I'd been out 6 months at that point. But so, it's not a situation of just do it. There are incredible obstacles. Again, even I just want to say, even for me, it wasn't my choice to come. I have American parents. I am educated in that system. I know those laws. I've felt the strong hand of that law. And that's the other thing. I have been to jail, and I've been to jail because they, everybody has driving offenses in where we're from. Everybody drives everywhere. You're always going to get nabbed for something. So I had my license revoked. I was driving without a license when I was a teenager. And, push comes to shove, it wasn't a felony. But, if they want to leverage that, there is something to leverage. And otherwise, I'm a good citizen, right? Not that I deserve, rights are rights, but,
Yeah.
you know, I was a goddamn social worker. I mean, like, I've
Yeah.
done the good work. I've served the people, you know?
Yeah.
So, um, it's very hard to see everything that's happening. It's very, for me, I have a very fuck it attitude. I left, and obviously I'm still emotionally trying to unpack it, what it is to redefine home for myself, to create that mental and emotional separation, to live without that sense of comfort and awareness. Um, but I just, I just can't, I just, I just can't understand how this got this big. I just don't. How did we get here? How did
Yeah.
we get here? Um, and so for me, I'm lucky. I'm lucky that I have a good passport. I'm dumb luck. I was born in Korea and I wasn't born in Vietnam. Originally my parents talked about wanting to adopt a Vietnamese child, and just based on political circumstances, Korea has a really strong passport. And I mention that because of the relationship between America, not necessarily even in the world, but very specifically the relationship between Vietnam and America, the relationship between Korea and America. I can go in with a visa on arrival, basically. A Vietnamese person cannot. Um, so anyway, I hope it's helpful to understand, to flesh out, to humanize, to see personal examples, to hear personal anecdotes of how people are living with these decisions and these abstract ideas. You know somebody, it's me.
Yeah, and it's not outliers. It's not just the ones that like are making headlines recently. It's happened to many more people.
Yeah. I'm not a protester. I'm not an activist.
You're
I'm
not being
just,
targeted for political like
no,
views in
no,
any way whatsoever.
no. I was going home, you know. I was just going home. That's it. So that's what it is. That's where we're at. So anyway,
Yeah.
how do you feel there? I mean,
Uh,
you're on a college campus. Do you have students on student visas? I mean, how deep is
yeah.
that
It's very
permeating?
scary because funding, like obviously people don't know what their funding is. Some just like aren't coming. We still it'll be interesting to see it when the fall starts up again because that's when, new programs start. And so how
Yeah,
many as a research institution that grants doctorates, we get a lot of international students. Like realistically speaking, any university of this size is mostly run by the tuition that it can charge to international students. That's
yeah,
a much higher
yeah.
rate than like an in-state or in US.
Mm,
And so along with federal grants, being uh taken away, I would say the culture of fear is part of every day. I'm worried about the self censorship of people in my position who it's just like it like they don't want to draw attention, and so the easy way is to like not say anything. And the reality is we're supposed to be an institute of higher learning. We're supposed to teach like critical thinking and like
yeah.
understanding what that means in a supposedly democratic society. And so how can we not talk about it? But the
And the other thing, Missy, is like I see it from my side is like the culture of nihilism. I mean, I'm very, very guilty of that. The culture of like nothing matters, everything's shit. This is just, the darkness. And I mean, I think speaking out about this was part of that. It's like, man, even if it's might not be like a direct action, but just keeping conscious, just being very, very, very awake about what is happening is is really important to not let that like cloud of overwhelm
Oh, because
fog
it
everything.
is. And I think like we've seen like as a teacher I've seen like the way they attack these things before, so it's like part of it is very like, okay, this is the same playbook as it was last time. We attack, we attack immigrants, we blame them. We attack um non-white countries or poor countries, that we can get in fights with. And we go after anything that is intellectual or questioning. I think part of the thing for me that was really eye-opening to have it happen this year is that I had to teach a course that I hadn't taught before really, and it was like a history of ed. And it was taking through like, the civil rights era. And so they're talking about like Nixon sending, the National Guard to Kent State and like killing student protesters and stuff. And I just got in a loop for a while where I was like, oh, I could see that happening again right now. Like I could see some of the like pro-Palestine like protests, like I could see the National Guard being sent in, the way that they are deploying not just immigration, but just like military might in general against citizens, non-citizens, but people who are here on school and work visas. Like I couldn't in good conscience tell anyone who doesn't have a US passport to come to the US right now. Like
Yeah.
just just
It's
because
happening
I
in Korea with like mixed marriages. So if you have like I know a couple people specifically, like an American husband and a Korean wife, or a lot of plans are being rearranged.
oh yeah. And like I've had, grad students or students I've met in that, and it's very much, I don't know if I'm coming back. Like I'm finishing out the semester, but I don't know if I'm coming back, or I don't know if I can come back. And it's like, I don't want to encourage anyone to come back if like the danger of just existing is huge. And when you come as an international student, you're so vulnerable. You can't work other than an on-campus like provided job. Like your bounds of whatever that student visa is are so strictly limited. Your income, where you can live, all of that stuff is so strictly limited already
Yeah, yeah,
that the just how can it be worth the risk, you know?
yeah, yeah. I mean, and um, there we see people coming in. People are talking about like what's happening with the border and immigrants coming in now. But I think with my circumstance, it's important to remember that this was an entire industry. Planefuls of babies were being sent into different parts of the world, but definitely into America. And I am becoming aware more and more of people in my specific circumstance where the parents didn't naturalize them. They get to because this was happening, since the Korean War, so 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, where Koreans, I'll speak specifically to Koreans, but Koreans were being adopted out, and there was no accountability, there was no follow up, there's nothing. And then you realize that you are not a citizen, or you realize that you are eligible to be deported, or you realize that you are ineligible for benefits. There are a lot of people who are in that they've grown up there and they didn't realize they weren't a citizen. I mean, if you just go about your life, you don't apply for a passport. I mean, there's a lot of ways that this can happen, especially Americans, kind of notoriously don't travel internationally. So that's not
Yeah.
an uncommon circumstance. So people are at risk that didn't even know they were at risk, you know? If you, and I mean, like, then we get into like the whole, complex of how how the the policing system there, and how people are getting convicted of crimes, and people are doing plea deals, and everything's wrapped into it, and then you can be deported because now you're a criminal, and um it's a very, very complicated issue with people that are American. They
Yeah.
are American. They are there. That is their home. That's where they live. That's where they've been raised. And I hate to be that ass. I didn't ask to go. I didn't ask to be adopted. I'm grateful. I think I know I benefited in a lot of ways, but it wasn't on my volition. I didn't make that choice. I didn't make that choice to be in Iowa. I didn't make that choice to not have my paperwork.
Well,
I
yeah,
didn't
the
make,
paperwork part, the fact that there's no recourse for those of you who weren't aware of that, and that you can't just like file the paperwork that the parents should have filed, or why not expand the date if they could do it everyone after like February 20 whatever of 2001. Why can't, I mean, there's nothing that says that Congress can't go back and amend that and say, hey, actually, since the Korean War, this has been an issue. It didn't just like
yeah,
happen starting when we like passed this thing, and it should extend. Or like, also, just why isn't that like, why are people from the US allowed to internationally adopt without that paperwork like being a like required part of it?
we were
That
just,
like you're bringing vulnerable babies, and like a lot of times it's through churches or through like religious related organizations. And I don't know if they can fill those planes of babies. You're not telling me they can't like get the paperwork filled out. Like they could bring you over. You had your passport.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. But this is where we're at, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm not, yeah. I mean, I feel like that was the simple thing, is just to, and let me tell you, I already told you I was sober for 2 years and I started drinking when
Yeah.
the election results came in. But that was the biggest piece, very, I'll say selfishly, um, because I felt like if Kamala Harris were in office, and not her as an individual, but presenting my situation, it seems pretty straightforward. And just knowing that there was a place for that to be received,
Yeah.
had the election gone a different way. And it's maybe that's naive, but it's very, very clear that the opposite is true. That once those election results came in, I was like, if the door was closed before, that was the lock on it. And that's, I sobbed. I sobbed when the election results came in, because I love living in Korea. I feel, whatever, I'm here, right? It is what
Mhm.
it is. I can call it what it is. We can try to find a name, home, whatever. Um, but there was still this part of me that hoped that I could have access. It's just the comfort of access and knowing how a system works. That's the biggest thing. Because living as an expat, you don't understand all of the nuances of society, you know? Like, it's something simple. I'm a business owner here. If I want to collaborate with another business from a cultural perspective, if I'm back in Iowa, I know how to get access to the people I want to get access to, or I know the systems of, how, like, what rules I can bend, what rules I can't bend, right? That's just part of like being, enmeshed in the cultural fibers there, growing up with it. Here, I don't know. There's so much, secret interaction stuff. I mean, not just Korea, but any
Any
separate
culture,
the
like
culture.
I
There's
mean,
going to have
yeah,
nuance. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, they're gonna be that like that level of culture that it's if you're not raised in it, you aren't allowed into it. And
yeah,
like oftentimes the people who are raised in it, because it was just like it's their normal, even if they're trying to be generous to you, they're not going to think of like how do you communicate these things, or like this is why this
yeah,
happens, or and the fact
yeah,
that you were just like you were socialized in the US, you have very
mm,
like your socialization is very different.
yeah. So, I mean, I'm making the best of it, but I had that hope, and then it was such a dark day, Missy. It felt so final. And this is before everything that we're seeing. It felt very, very final that somebody else gets to define my home and somebody else gets to take away my home. And um, it's very insane. Like, I have siblings, I have nieces and nephews, I have good friends. Um, and poof, that night, just, yeah, that's just the feeling. It's just the lock was put on the gate, you know?
Yeah.
So
And all of those
I need to talk to ChatGPT about this because clearly it's unprocessed.
but it is, like I think about the differing reactions to the election, and how like some people treat it like, oh, why would somebody cry over why would somebody get that upset, because they still think of it like a sports,
Yeah,
like it's like their team won a championship, and it's like no, like lives are at stake in one direction and then not, and to see it happening so blatantly, it's not even trying to be hidden, because that's how proud they are of what they've done, and that's how much support they have for from people, or at least the culture of fear that they have created among people. I know a lot of smart people who are just like, I don't want to draw attention, or, oh, like, whatever, we got to be careful. And it's like, careful of what? If there's no law for anyone, then there's no law, like if we're not going to hold this person who's in control to like the checks and balances that are foundational to the system, then it's not a system that like the system is void, I guess,
yeah, yeah. I don't know how to be hopeful about this. I don't know how to like
there's
bring
no,
the
there's not like,
bring
and
it
I
up.
don't, yeah, I don't think it's just a like sit and discomfort thing, but hopefully,
For
I
me,
always,
it's just my advocacy of like just stay awake. Stay awake. Just stay awake. You know? If people just do that little bit, then that's more than a lot.
yeah, yeah. I'm I'm glad you're like talking about it, not just to AI,
Yeah.
like having other humans to hear about it. But also I think like, there's that annoying part where people need to hear like from someone they know in order for
Yeah.
their mind to actually change, and so they think something is far away, and the reality is that it's not far away. They're just either not listening, or they've marked themselves as like not a person who's safe for people to share with, even if they know that.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
Happy Joe's economy will never be the same without a Mindy Cisco in Iowa. Davenport's finest is gonna go down in flames.
Missy, there is a Happy Joe's in Cairo. I
What?
shit you
Like the
not.
branding, like it's actual
Yes.
Happy Joe. Happy
Yes.
Joe got to Cairo. How did he get
It's all
there?
making sense now. It's all making sense now.
Okay, so then you gotta become a celebrity there. They have a Happy Joe's.
Yeah, I think we should collab.
um that reminds me of like how many times like which restaurants give you the good eater card, you know, and like Happy Joe's, that woman that one time was like so pleasured by us taking down a deluxe taco and one beer apiece in record time.
Oh. Oh.
um No, like I just like I'm like, oh my God, wait staff just loves to watch me do my thing. Have you had the Happy Joe's in Cairo?
Did not. I didn't make it because it was so like I was in an Uber and I was like, am I like hysterically blind
Oh
or
my God,
hysterically
Minnie,
happy right now? It's
can you
real.
smoke at the Happy Joe's in Cairo?
Ouch.
Because if so,
Oh.
sign me up. I can't wait. Fly around the world to have some
It's
Happy.
worth it. It's worth it.
It will
I've
be.
I've gone further for less. Let's just say
That's a
that.
comment about men.
Boo. Huh?
Oh man.
Anyway, well,
Yeah.
I didn't intend to cry through this prom hair eyeliner situation. So,
I can tell, but I think it's better for it that like you know, well, no, I just mean like it's very like genuine and it's not like I'm coming on to tell you my sob story. Here I am like laying out the facts for you
yeah.
and oh, it really fucking sucks. Like I can't.
Yeah. And that's that's another wild thing is like the hierarchy of suffering. Like I'm
Oh,
not allowed to feel bad about my situation because I have a passport and I speak English. And, I
the
am,
oppression Olympics, man.
yeah, yeah. So,
No.
and so I think that it's getting over my own fear and nervousness about if I say this, yeah, but there are people who are really suffering. But I mean, it's the implications are vast, and I got scooped up in that net. And so,
And I
not
think
to dismiss
too,
my suffering as suffering.
yeah,
It
yeah, you're
fucking
so
sucks. It
dismissing
fucking
because that's what,
sucks.
like, I think even though, like, so, like, extreme cases are what make the news and what people talk about, but then that's also really easy for people to dismiss because they're like, oh, like, that's like an outlier. That's a whatever case. But so then there's a lot of self-silencing of people are like, okay, I'm not that bad, but like, even just the like, you surrendered that like years ago,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And so
2019.
just the understanding that like how many in that span of time, how many people has that happened to, how many people is that happening to right now? Even just the bullshit of like every time you came in before that, like always knowing that like I gotta go to the second counter.
Or just little things like, they're such cowboys that, okay, I'm just going to be sexually harassed at the window.
Mhm.
I had some of my Korean students who mistakenly flew through America on their way to a retreat I was leading in Mexico. You're just going to get sexually harassed. There's no accountability. They're just going to say weird, gross things to you. Just smile and just get through. That's a lived reality that has nothing to do with being Korean. That's a lived reality that has nothing to do with having a foreign passport. That's, there's just no accountability for them. Everybody's treated like a criminal going into the States. I mean, you can speak to that,
Yeah.
but I mean, just to live with that knowledge that like I'm just completely disempowered in this situation. Okay, the world is not fair. You know, like what a fucked up thing to live with. So everything I do now, I just avoid flying. That's such a you know first world thing. I don't fly through the states anymore. But that's I remember thinking about it because in 2019, this is right before COVID happened, and I was in a very good situation during COVID. I was taken care of by my partner's family. But had I needed to, had I not had that support system
Yeah.
and needed to go to America to be with my fucking family,
Yeah.
no, you're a foreigner. You're a foreigner on paper. No, no, no. Don't show me the baby books. Don't show me the graduation pictures.
Yeah.
No, you are a foreigner. Point blank period. You know? So again, I just keep like I try to stay positive and think about this in terms of luck. I was lucky that I had a support system during COVID. I'm lucky I didn't need to go home. I'm lucky, 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 lucky. But it's like, man, who are these fucking assholes that are making other people so goddamn unlucky? You know?
Yeah.
But there was a lot of pizza time in COVID times too. So
Oh,
okay.
you
Okay,
need
baby
to
doll.
slice
You
and
need to go.
dice that thing up, make it look
Yeah.
real good. You'd be like, part one, part two, part three. Send
Tears,
me the
tears,
timer.
laughter, Happy Joe's talk,
Yeah.
tears. Not a Kamala fan, still wanted her.
Well, that's the thing. It's like anything, like essentially the bar is so low to be decent that like anything would have, because I've had people be like, how do you even know enough about Kamala? I'm like, I know enough that she's not Trump. Like that's really what the baseline was.
Yeah.
Like it was that like anyone but this. Anyone but the fucking like evil.
The regime.
Yeah.
Call it what the fuck it is. It's a
Yeah,
fucking terror regime. It's a
yeah,
terror regime.
it
Why are we
is.
mincing words? Why are we talking around it?
Because they're scared of the machine. Like that's the thing. It is. It's like like the I don't know. It's wild to me.
Yeah.
But
I'm safe. I'm glad that you are safe. We stay vigilant
yeah.
and we live our lives. I mean, I think, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Hasan Piker, and I saw him on a podcast talking about like, man, what do you do with all this heaviness in the world? Because I still work out, I still go and play basketball. Because if you don't have anything in your life of substance that you're living for, then it's over, game over. There's nothing. There's no point to any of
Yeah.
it then, you know.
Yeah.
So okay. Well, sweet dreams, little princess.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for more finals tomorrow. No, Mindy, I had the sweetest, like he's a boy I've had before. And he was like, I can't believe like our time together is done. I'm like, yeah, I know. And he was like, I just want you to know that like I liked having you as a professor, but I feel like I gained a friend too. And he was so genuine and like we are gonna be friends. He's like such a soft boy, like he's in the band. He plays trombone. He's a Ben Hartfield. Oh my God. He's a Ben Hartfield. How did I not realize that?
Do I turn off the recording now? We don't need any of this. We don't need
Yeah.
any evidence of this.
No, it was sweet.
Uh,
But
I have another post I'm doing that's yoga related. It's just like, all of these one line things. And it's like, point of view. This isn't, again, a little bit loaded. I was like, point of view, I'm your yoga teacher. You will fall in love with me. And no, I will not date you.
yeah. No, that's the thing. It's like, okay. And like, I'm having all these final conferences, which I'm like, no, you're going to define the class. Grades aren't real. Stop thinking grades are real. You're going to be a
Yeah.
fucking teacher. Grades aren't
Yeah.
real. Like, like I'm literally scheduling this because I'm required to schedule a final, but I've made it not a test. I've made it a one-on-one conversation behind closed doors, so you can ask me whatever you want about like off the record. And I get it. Like the girls, the lesbians, of course they're fans, the gay boys, but like the straight men, it's always interesting to watch them navigate it, because
Mhm.
they're like, I really, yeah. They're like, I really enjoyed you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm enjoyable. It's okay. It might be complicated to like realize that you like a woman without like,
Wanting to fuck her.
yeah, exactly. That but like, that's what this feeling is. You can have
Mhm.
respect for a woman and not want like anything like in return. You can enjoy
Yeah.
speaking with a woman.
Without making it transactional. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, no, I like you too. I like talking to you too. And like that's it. It's just like a really platonic, like even I'm not bringing any sexual energy. I can tell you that.
Oh, that's not my
That
beast of burden.
that's not my zone. I don't live there. I don't I
I'm the
promise.
fucking mayor. I'm the mayor.
I promise you, everyone's getting the exact same energy. It's not sexual, it's just chaotic. It's deeply rooted in wanting to have fun.
Well, go with God, Sister Missy. I
All
hope you,
right.
you know, get them connected with the resources they need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
All
I love
right.
you.
Love you
Good
too.
night. See you
Bye.
later. Bye.